Welcome to Snobs.
Welcome to Snobs.
This is a podcast where we critique
Everything.
because nothing is sacred.
And everything can be refined,
elevated,
and even nitpicked. Oh, hi, Twinkle. Every episode, we usually focus on a piece of writing, a TV show,
movie,
book,
or whatever does not meet our impossibly high standards.
I'm Aaron. I'm a writer and comedian, and today I'm a snob about writing about hope.
I'm Connie. I'm a writer, calligrapher, and today I am a snob about how people use star metaphors.
Today, we're talking about Kamala Harris's concession speech. It might feel inelegant to critique this thing, but I think it's actually important to critique this kind of final statement of her campaign. Mm-hmm. I think we watched it the night of the election, and I think we had a lot of feelings about it. Mm-hmm. Like, I guess the first question is there a right way to lose?
Of course, there is a right way to lose. There's like sore losers, and there is a loser. I think especially in leadership position, you're looking for someone who can. People did vote for you. People did believe in your cause, and these people need a direction forward because, in some ways, you're abandoning them as a leader. Like, because the majority of the country did not vote for you, but they are still looking for a leader.
Are you really abandoning the people that voted for you? Like, she still can be a public servant.
She can be a public servant, but not in the capacity she's promising.
Sure.
Right? So, like, these people, like, the talk around, we need to organize or mobilize, but, like, how? And, like, we are facing a leader that we did not vote for, and then how do we move forward?
Sure.
What does our leader that we wanted say about this transition?
Sure.
Right? Within us. I mean, what do you need in a concession speech? What do you want?
I think in a concession speech, well, like, we didn't even talk about if a concession speech is necessary.
Sure.
Right? Because I think that, like, these days we're realizing that concession speeches are not necessary. Right? Mm-hmm. Where, like, Trump didn't concede. He has never conceded. Right? And we have assumed that concession speeches are necessary. Mm. But, like, are concession speeches necessary for a good leader?
Mm. Are we using Trump as an example of a good leader?
Well, no, but not a good leader, but, like, for someone we want.
Sure.
Right? I think, again, for me, it's like a concession speech needs, because it's the end, because you have to admit defeat here. Mm. I think that there's something, you get the opportunity to say something beyond just that I lost, right? And admitting that you lost.
Yeah.
Right? I think that this allows for a moment in which, right, like, you have to pretend like you win. Mm-hmm. You're going to win. Right? And you always have to talk, even if you're down in the polls, you always have to talk like you're going to win. Mm-hmm. But, like, once the election results come out, like, you can't pretend anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's what's most important about a concession speech. It's like the fact that we can't pretend like everything is okay.
I mean, I think about this in terms of, like, after a basketball game, right? Somebody is losing. And they will always go up and be like, oh, how do you feel about losing? And then they'll be like, we give it our all, we give it our shot, but we're so grateful for the fans. And, like, there's a formula for admitting defeat. But the difference is that after a basketball game, like, there are no significant consequences for the fans other than if you bet on the thing. And, like, sure. It's an emotional loss, but there's no... rights lost, right? Like, from a game like that. Sure. And it feels like the difference. So for me, the concession speech needs to look different than the format or the content of what a basketball player or any sports player gives after a game, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's where it's like the basketball player, the most vulnerable thing is being able to admit what they could have done better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's, I think, the most real concession speeches. Mm. Right? Like, not even concession speeches, it's just, like, the most real, like, press conference afterwards. Yeah. People will talk about, like, where they failed. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, like, the Warriors never, 20 last season or the season with Jordan Poole where like Draymond Green punches Jordan Poole, like they never say out loud like what fucked up the season, which was one player full on punching another player in the face, right? And I think that the fans felt it, right? The fans felt like they didn't feel sad in the loss because you're like everyone. You're not admitting. Yeah, you're not admitting that like everyone fucked up, right? And like Draymond Green still doesn't really admit that, right? We're talking a lot about basketball right now, but yes,
it's a low stake example.
Yeah, but in some ways, it's like that admittance is what you're also talking about, right? But you're talking about like what actually like politicians have to admit to their constituents or their potential constituents is that like, oh yeah, the promises I've made you, I have failed in, and your lives will be different now because I didn't win.
It's fascinating, right? Because like, I don't know why I'm stuck on this sports analogy, but it feels right in the sense of the campaign, a political campaign happens. All of this happens because we know, or we think we know who we want to vote for because we listen to their speeches. Yeah. They're not actually in the process of campaigning, changing your lives, right? So it is all about a promise.
It's all about what you say.
What you say. And so that then becomes, like, what you say becomes the game. That's why there's a debate. Right? Yeah. So then, like, it's almost like we need to have a post-debate, like, closure, regrouping, or something, because these promises you delivered, these promises that people voted for, it's not going to happen. So what do you do about that?
Yeah. And again, all you have is to say something. Yeah. Right. That's I think the most important part about the concession speech is that like you have said so much stuff because that's all you can do. Yeah. And then at the end, you have one final thing to say, and like what you say is important. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's listen to this concession speech.
And I love you back. And I love you back. So let me say, my heart is full today. My heart is full today, full of gratitude for the trust you have placed in me, full of love for our country, and full of resolve. The outcome of this election is not what we wanted, not what we fought for, not what we voted for, but hear me when I say, the light of America's promise will always burn bright. As long as we never give up, and as long as we keep fighting.
Sorry, the thing just cuts to like a woman crying. Well, I want to say the disparity between her words and the fact that, so like she just talks immediately about keep fighting, we must keep fighting, the light of America's promise or whatever, and it cuts to like a woman crying, someone who obviously worked very hard for Kamala, right? And
externally or internally,
or internally, and like it feels like there's a disconnect between what the people are feeling and what she is saying, right? Yeah.
Over the 107 days of this campaign, we have been intentional about building community and building coalitions, bringing people together from every walk of life and background, united by love of country with enthusiasm and joy in our fight for America's future. And we did it with the knowledge that we all have so much more in common than what separates us.
Yeah.
My whole thing is that what we all have so much in the knowledge that we all have.
Now I know Folks are feeling and experiencing a range of emotions right now.
This is what
I get it. We owe loyalty not to a president or a party, but to the Constitution of the United States. And loyalty to our conscience and to our God. My allegiance to all three is why I am here to say, while I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign.
What do you think about this, her talking about the fight?
I think...
Or this fact that she's like, I concede the election, but not the fight.
I think that what is... You'll see what I write.
Sure.
But I'm very sensitive about fight language, both on illness and on country, right? On like this fight for our rights or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What are we... Who's the opponent? Mm-hmm. Because the opponent is the majority of the country that did not vote for you.
Right.
So, right, like, or who is the opponent? State the opponent. Is it the power structure? Is it like, what is it? Because there's enough animosity in this country that is causing this. Sure. And we are using fight language.
Yeah.
And I understand the need for motivation or just like to do this like push and like inspiration thing, but like, who are we alienating?
Yeah.
What are we learning from this election that you're using more alienation language?
Sure.
Yeah.
I just think that in my opinion, the fight language doesn't read the room, right? I think the fight language like makes sense, in a month, right? But like right when it's like right when the enemy has fully overtaken your base, and you're like in a cell with your other prisoners of war, right? In the full-on war metaphor. Right? All you're saying is we will continue to fight as you are just trapped and helpless.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There is an absence of grace to, and it's like we're not at war, right? Like this metaphor of being in a prison of war is not exactly apt, but it's like, I think for a lot of like people, mostly like I would say like even more so for women who voted for Kamala and who are in this fight, like it just feels like really like pull yourself up from your bootstraps, like kind of like we can't give up thing, when it's like maybe take a moment. The best way to keep fighting is to like care a little bit for a second, to take care and be like, we're gonna heal, we're gonna go like address our wounds, and then we will like.
I mean, what you're saying about like, the fight language, the video kind of cuts to this woman crying, right? Of like her not able to read the room. I think the other thing that I see significantly missing here, right? People think women cry because they're sad. And sure, people cry because they're sad. People also cry because they're angry, right? Yeah. And like the absence of acknowledgement of like to say a range of emotions and to not name them or embody them or act like you feel them. I don't know, right? Like for me, after I watched this Kamala speech, I went to pull up Hillary Clinton's 2016 concession speech because I was like, this is missing the leadership that I need in this moment, right? Because I do not feel seen listening to her speak. And
what did you see in Clinton's speech?
I saw in Clinton's speech it's fascinating because the content doesn't shift all that much, which is also a problem, I think, because since 2016, our content should be shifting. But what's significantly different for me was the tone. The tone felt like it acknowledged the gravity of the moment. Sure. Like I could see in her, she is embodying them, but also you can see that she is processing them. Right? Like I'm not saying go on stage and have a full out anger outburst, right? But like someone who can translate anger into language, can translate sadness into language, right? Yeah. And even if it is a performance, honestly, right? Even if it is a fucking performance, to demonstrate that you know your people.
Yeah, exactly. Or just, there's a moment where it's like, it's not just even to know your people, is to show your people something, right?
To show your people that you understand them.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, let's just keep going, because
By looking in the face of a stranger and seeing a neighbor, by always using our strength to lift people up, to fight for the dignity that all people deserve. The fight for our freedom will take hard work, but like I always say, we like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work can be joyful work. And the fight for our country is always worth it. It is always worth it. To the young people who are watching, it is... I love you. To the young people who are watching, it is okay to feel sad and disappointed, but please know it's going to be okay. On the campaign, I would often say, when we fight, we win. But here's the thing. Sometimes the fight takes a while. That doesn't mean we won't win. That doesn't mean we won't win. The important thing is don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop trying to make the world a better place. You have power. You have power. And don't you ever listen when anyone tells you something is impossible because it has never been done before. You have the capacity to do extraordinary good in the world. And so to everyone who is watching, do not despair. This is not a time to throw up our hands. This is a time to roll up our sleeves. This is a time to organize, to mobilize, and to stay engaged for the sake of freedom and justice and the future that we all know we can build together. And I'll close with this. There's an adage an historian once called a law of history, true of every society across the ages. The adage is, only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. I know many people feel like we are entering a dark time, but for the benefit of us all, I hope that is not the case. But here's the thing, America, if it is, let us fill the sky with the light of a brilliant, brilliant billion of stars. The light of optimism, of faith, of truth, and service. HU. And may that work guide us, even in the face of setbacks, toward the extraordinary promise of the United States of America. I thank you all. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. I thank you all.
Okay.
The only thing that I feel is redeeming, but it is undercut by everything else she says, is that this fight might take longer than you think. Or something like that, right? But everything else feels so hopeful, feels so like, you know, there isn't even an acknowledgement of like a lot of, like she says a lot of people thinks that like we are moving into dark times. The thing is, like, I want to know what you think. You know, I don't, it's like, yes, I understand this desire to hope that we're not moving into dark times, but like,
you know, what do
you think?
Because it's, you were just about, like, to be president, you have to know what you think about the moment right now. Right? What you think is the problem. What you think compared to Trump. Right? His views are racist, xenophobic, whatever. All the isms, right? But they are just like, you're like, he doesn't need polling to, like, he can use polling to, like,
find out what he thinks.
Find out what he thinks. But he also, like, is pretty convincing when he says, like, you know, X is a garbage country or whatever. Right? Nobody's like, oh, it doesn't, it feels like her, I mean, not even her, just so many of, like, the Democrats who are still in this, like, kind of old world, they feel like they say things, I just, like, can't tell what they actually think. Right?
They're just being a politician. They're doing this thing where we're sanding down all the corners and everyone can be included in this, but that is not how, like, what the majority of the country wants anymore. Right? It's like this idea, this idea to preserve, to not poke at anything, to not say the thing that might offend some people. This, like, appeasing thing feels inauthentic, and people can read it. You know,
and people can read that better than anything
else, because we just are able to read that energetically as humans. And you can say a lot about Trump, but he is not inauthentic. Like, he might be lying. But he's not anyone else other than himself. Right? What are things you focused on and you wanted to say, and then we'll, like, have you read your speech. We'll also maybe play it on Concession. So one of the main things that I wanted was the acknowledgement of failure. That we lost the game, not just in the sense of jab at Trump of, like, we will do the peaceful transition of power that you didn't want to do with us, but, like, how have we failed the country? Right? Because we lost the popular vote. Right? So she talks about public trust. You did not earn public trust. That's, like, one of the main things. I want you to say that Draymond punched Jordan. Right? Like, I want that. And then the other thing is, to the people who are crying in the crowd, angry or sad, or are going to organize, how exactly do you want us to shine like stars? I want to hear from you how you want us to shine like stars. I don't know what you mean by shine like stars, right? Like, where am I gonna get the courage? What do I do to shine, right? And I don't mean assign us tasks, but like acknowledge the severity of the situation and give us that, that a roadmap, a guideline of the hard work that is at hand, right? Roll up our sleeves and do what? Are you going to join us? Are you going to lead us? You lead us by showing us what's possible to do. Okay. Do I read this thing?
We read this thing, and then we'll maybe have Kamala read it too.
So I took a line from the speech, and then I just turn it into another direction that I would like to see it.
What you're about to hear are speeches written and read by us, and transformed by a deepfake of Kamala Harris's voice. Now, AI technology like this is very complex. And we know that during the campaign, a similar technique was used to create a commercial and attack ad against Kamala to make false statements about her. And so we want to take time to acknowledge that there is potential for harm using this technology. But despite our feelings about AI, we also know that this is a tool that's here to stay.
As artists in our time, we believe that we can use this tool with different intentions. Let us be clear. What you are about to hear are not the words or opinions of Kamala Harris. However, once we first heard the deepfake, we felt moved because we finally heard the words that we were wanting to hear. And we want to share that same experience with you.
Over the 107 days of this campaign, we have been intentional about building community and building coalitions, bringing people together from every walk of life and background, united by love of country, with enthusiasm and joy in our fight for America's future. And we did it with the knowledge that we all have so much more in common than what separates us. Yet our knowing did not unite us to really listen and bridge our separation. The painful reality is that we have been too quick to dismiss each other's fear and frustrations as opposition. And we have failed to truly see over 2 million of our neighbors who didn't just disagree with us, but felt angry, unseen, and unheard from years of watching their communities struggle, their families work harder for less, and their hopes for the future fade. To the majority of Americans who did not vote for me, I speak directly to you. I owe you this acknowledgement. I failed to earn your trust. It makes sense that you want change. We should have, since 2016, tried harder to understand and work to change your reality. Not to win your vote, but because your experience matters. Your pain matters. Your suffering is real. While we may still see different paths forward, I can promise you this. I will never give up fighting for you.
To those of you ready to organize, mobilize, and stay engaged for the sake of freedom and justice and the future that we all know we can build together, we must learn from the results of this campaign. Remember that each yard sign, whether for me or for Trump, marks a home of hopes and fears as real as yours. Don't go to comfort, go to listen. When they tell you they are angry about immigrants, can you care for their fear of losing their own place in the world? When they tell you about vaccines or election fraud, can you hold their deep distrust, born from the times they have felt lied to, left behind, and laughed at? Because you too know those feelings well. When this pain comes out as conspiracy theories or racism or rage, can you see behind the expressions you might not agree with the vulnerabilities of being human that you share with them? You are about to embark on one of the hardest journeys and answer one of the most important questions. Can you love your neighbors? Some doors won't open. Some conversations will end badly, but keep going, because understanding isn't about changing minds. We must mend the torn fabric in our communities, one difficult conversation at a time.
Yours is better, but I think that a lot of what I see here is I I did similar things where I picked 3 lines that she said, and then kind of went off of that, right? But I took the other approach where what you were saying, which is like, well, one, I want to acknowledge, like, I think that one thing that I love about this is that there is sustaining power in this writing, right? Like that she stays with one point. She has a limited amount of time in your version of the speech, and she stays and says one, not blanket 1 inch deep amount of hope.
Yeah.
Right? But sustains and be like, think about, and gives someone a really tangible image to hold on to.
To be a star.
Yeah. To be like, what does being a star look like? It means walking into someone else's house.
Yeah.
Being fearful of yourself for your own safety and still choosing to be there. Not, again, to change minds, but to actually do the extremely hard thing, which is a thing that I don't think I can do. To acknowledge how, like, to be able to look forward and to be like, right, she goes, it's gonna have to, we love hard work or whatever the book she says, right?
Yeah.
It's like, show us what the hard work is gonna look like.
Yeah. How are you gonna do it?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, how are you gonna do it?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how are you going to, like, I read this really interesting tweet about, like, how the Dems were not willing to go on, like, Joe Rogan. Right? Like, I think Joe Rogan would have 100% booked Kamala Harris. Right? Like, but the Dems are not willing to go on Joe Rogan and, like, have a time where she is talking to a motherfucking idiot. Right? And I don't know, there's just something about it that feels like hypocritical in their unwillingness to do it. And
you can't actually lead a country, right? Like, these people are not, you have not earned their trust. Yeah. Do you want to be their leader or not?
Yeah.
Right?
Because you have to be.
You have to be if you want to be president. So do you want to be or not? Like, that's like the actual question for me. And it's like I think about, like, people do this loving each other across the aisle in so many ways in real life, right? Like AA meetings, right? Like, among other things, just, it's not perfect examples of people do it. And I think there's like this, like, let's shine like stars in the dark. And it's like, no, we really need to actively love people that we have laughed at, right? And dismiss them as, like, insane or whatever.
Sure.
If we don't love them, if we don't care about them, how are they supposed to care about our rights? Right?
What would you say to the argument that, like, they won't care about our rights? Like she should only care about her own people.
I think there will be people who will just not care about your rights. There will always be people who just won't care. But there are people who would care.
Sure.
Right? Like, we see this fluctuation even from 2016 when we won the popular vote.
Sure.
Right? Till now when we're losing. There are people who are willing to care.
Yeah. Or are just, like, they're not anti. They just don't, like they are open to caring.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or that they're, like, they can be convinced to care, or their vote can show that they care.
Yeah.
Because of the economy or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
Right? Because I think that's, like, the largest critique that would be levered if for her to spend a solid portion of her concession speech not addressing the people that voted for her, but, I mean, you do.
Yeah.
Right? But addressing the people who didn't vote for her.
Yeah.
Right? Which I think is important. I wanted to do it, didn't end up writing it. But yeah, I think it would be Yeah, it would be. I think the largest critique levied against her.
Yeah.
Right, that she extends humanity and grace to those in the opposition, and some in her own, like on her own side, might see that as betrayal. Maybe.
I mean, I think so. The reality of the thing is there are consequences to whatever the fuck she's gonna end up saying.
Right.
Like we're creating.
Except for this.
Well,
there's no consequences to this other than us being like, we don't like it.
But a lot of people I've spoken to don't like this speech
right.
and feel very angry about it.
It's
just that it seems insignificant now because we lost.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what are you gonna do about that? Right? Like, but the difference, I think, is what do you think you have to lose?
Yeah.
Right? What
like
do you
think, as in
Kamala. Yeah. What do you think you have to lose? If you are, like we were talking about this last night, and you said that if you're still trying to protect your political capital and your political career and your desire to run again in 4 years. And my argument would be like, it feels like, right, Trump says whatever the fuck he actually thinks and feels. If he wants to dance 30 minutes to Ave Maria, he will do that, right? And so, like, it's, what do you have to lose when we've already lost the majority of the country to not say the thing? And, like, we haven't tried yet to say the thing, right? Like, we just have not. And I mean, the argument can always be made that, like, I think there are people, if you do this cross the aisle work, like, you might not get a good result, right? And, like, the way that I set this speech up, I also acknowledge that, like, you might just end badly, right? But I think the feeling, the authentic feeling of someone coming to talk to you for the purpose of understanding your story is going to feel very different than me laughing at you.
Yeah. It's also like the laughing and the act, the two things aren't almost not exclusive either.
Why? Because
I think that there's something really interesting about, like, what the Daily Show does, right?
Sure.
Right, like what, like, Jordan Klepper does. Like, for him to do his job well of going to every single Trump rally, he actually has to treat these people like people.
Yeah.
Right? But he still also has a job, he has a perspective, he has a mission. Right? Which is, like, he has a job to make fun of these people.
Yeah.
But, like, I think what is actually really, like, engaging about those segments that Jordan Klepper does is that you can tell they're clipping things, but you can tell that he has to sit down with these people and have, like, a much longer conversation.
Sure.
Right? And then he waits for them to say, like, something insane, and then they clip it because that's what it is. But, like, his act, like, I bet Jordan Klepper has way more empathy towards Trump voters than, like, the average Democrat who never actually talks to a Trump voter.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he could in detail outline what they need. Right? Like, I bet he can do that. Right?
And I think that's, I mean, it might be, but I think there's, like, I just imagine, like for me, if I go to a neighbor's house and I think that it's like for me, it's about the intention and the energy of it.
Yeah,
right. Sure. Like, if I go with the purpose of trying to laugh at you or trying to be like, you're so insane, this is ridiculous. People can feel that.
Yeah.
Right. And, like, I just, like, it's like, it's not necessarily the solution to the problem, but what do you do? Like, Kamala also mentions neighbors.
Right.
Oddly enough, right? Like, of just, like, but how do you want to treat these neighbors? Because none of them seem to care about my rights on my body.
Sure.
So what do you do?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I want to hear yours.
Cool. So the things I wanted to tackle was mostly just the acknowledgement of what has happened, but again, couched mostly in her rhetoric, and I wanted to hear her say things that she normally wouldn't say. Right? That's what's fun about this. It's like I can make her say things, right? So we have, through the terrifying world of AI, have created a like Kamala voice clone to read these speeches. It's also to read these speeches that we've written. So
okay, let's hear yours.
Okay, so yeah, the things I wanted a little specificity when she like brings up examples, just to like acknowledge what this decision means, and on the issues of the campaign. Right, and then I wanted to hear her.
What's the decision?
Huh?
What decision? You said what this
like,
decision means.
What the like election results mean
okay. Sure.
in the everyday lives of people, and then I think it's the three things were like specificity, her own accountability, and what she feels, and like, and yeah, I kind of just wanted to make her say some stuff.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
I know that the results of this election brings up very strong emotions for us all. I know that many of you feel like we're about to enter a dark time, that some of you are scared about the future, and I want to tell you that you are not alone. I am angry, sad, and scared too, because this sucks. Not just the results of this election, but where we are now as America. I am so mad that more women and children have died and will needlessly die because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I am saddened by the thought that our immigrant brothers and sisters will now live in fear of deportation. And I am scared about the rising grocery prices and what that will mean for the struggling parents trying to feed their kids. This sucks. Not just for me, not just for those who voted for me, but for all of us. We are obviously divided along political lines, and we don't agree on how to fix the problems we face. But we are united in the suckiness that we face. And I am sorry about that. I'm sorry for my role that led us here. We politicians don't say sorry enough. Most of the time when a politician apologizes, it's because they got caught in a sex scandal. And I mean, that's not even happening anymore. But for the moments like this, where I failed those who voted for me, and I have failed to reach those who didn't, we, us public servants, don't own our responsibilities to you. So I am sorry. I know this all sounds very dark and pessimistic, but I actually apologize because I do have hope. I hope for a future that sucks a little less. And so I apologize in order to break this cycle that we have lost ourselves in. This will not be the last time you see me, but for now I am sorry, and I will be better. This is not the last time you'll see me, but for now I am sorry, and I will be better.
And that's it.
It's in the word sucks, or the suckiness, will we suck a little less. That's like a fascinating word choice to use, mostly because it breaks you out of what you expect a politician to say.
Yeah.
And it levels you with your voters.
Right, because it's like the emotional evocation of the word man, like you go, man, that sucks, right? It has a casualness to it, an everydayness to that word that you can only say to your friends, right? And in some ways, it's like, yeah, it like it's just really hard to capture that feeling, and I wanted to capture, like, I wrote that and I was like, I just want her to say the word suck a bunch, right? Because it evokes such a commonplace feeling that can range from, man, it sucks to be me, right? Or it's like this, the results of X just sucks, right? Or like something really casual to something like, where if you extend it to a larger statement to be like, in Trump's America, it sucks to be a woman. Or just in the world, it sucks to be a woman, right? It captures a really wide range of what I imagine the experience will be, right? Like, it sucks to be disabled in the world. Like, captures the everydayness of just not being able to afford your groceries, right? Of being, like, scared that you're going to get deported, right? Like, it isn't good. And, like, that was, like, I think rhetorically, I was just like, that's what I want her to say.
It's funny, right? Because, like, in our relationship, you're the more optimistic one.
Sure.
And this thing that you wrote feels like what you're saying about hope is that we can't actively hope until we acknowledge where we're at, how bad it is, and from this place we can access hope, right? And there's something interesting about the line of, like, what did you write? You said and politicians don't when politicians apologize, it's because they got caught in a sex scandal, and that's not even happening anymore. And, like, that statement feels like a stab at Trump, but also it reminds me that she is a woman.
Sure.
You know, and, like, that and her having a uterus is important because people who have uteruses after this election feel a particular type of despair.
Yeah.
Right? So I wanted, and I didn't get to this in my speech, but, like, I wanted her to remind us that she shares the pain of having a uterus in this world, right? Or she knows. And that is something that, you know, like, I say this a lot. When in 2016, when Hillary lost, I was at Wellesley. Hillary went to Wellesley. We had this huge gathering of women. And I didn't understand until this election how much having that community mattered or how important it was. I didn't understand because I was just in it, and that just felt like what it was, right? But this election, it felt like it wasn't that just I wasn't around women. It's that I looked to Kamala after the election, and from this speech, I don't know if she knows, but I know that she knows, right? Like, she does mention, like, women, I want women to have these rights, but I want her to acknowledge for a second that everyone with a uterus in this country is now going to suffer, right? And I want her to acknowledge that as a woman.
Yeah.
And it feels incredibly, I think, alone to not have the person leading you to say that, to make space for that. Because in some ways, this is all she has for a while, right? Yeah. Like, the speech is all she is going to be seen for a while. And we are left with Trump. And where is our leader? Yeah. This is a semi-depressing first episode.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's the point, right? It's like, I think in some ways it's like, if Trump leans into the anger of the population, right? That's his, like, superpower, right? Like, I think that there's a part of me that is turned off by the incessant need for hope immediately, right? That like, it's like, how do people have hope? It's like people are delusional, or people feel strong enough to keep hoping, right? But like when people don't feel strong enough to keep hoping, it's just like telling a depressed person to stop being depressed, right? Like that's not how you get out of depression, right? And in some ways, it's acknowledging what the depression is. It's not a thing to be cured, you know? It's like, it's just that is what that is.
But it's like, it's almost like to be woke, right? We now have to suppress something and just express hope, right? Like,
I mean, I don't even know if that's like wokeness. That's just like the
performativity of that
but this like old political world, right? Of like I think, I don't know if it's like a very like American thing, but it's like we expect perfection out of. We're still in this world, or like Kamala still functions in this world where they expect perfection out. We expect perfection out of our politicians, right? But like
we're facing Donald Trump.
Yeah, we're facing a winner who is deeply imperfect. So like you don't need to be perfect anymore.
I mean, in some ways,
but also secondary, it's like you might need to be perfect because she's a woman, right? Or she has the expectation to be perfect, and she's not white. Yeah. It's just like so rough.
But like what I'm hearing you say, right, is that winning in this country, or what let's not even talk about winning or losing. What the majority of Americans are resonating with is a person who is deeply imperfect, who is authentic to himself, and there's something to be learned from that. You don't have to agree with his policies or his absence of a plan or like what he's gonna do, what he represents, right? But like the reason that he's gathering support, like it's time to stop being surprised by it and actually be like, what is it that people want? And if I'm going to serve these people, which I'm implying if I'm running for president, what do I need to embody, or what do I need to work on that might now resonate with these people? How am I not seeing them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like it's not just a jab at Donald Trump, this line.
Yeah.
It's another thing that I never see on liberal media.
Of politicians apologizing.
No. Just that the left doesn't acknowledge that we don't have to apologize anymore. We still function in the world of being like, he sexually assaults women and he says all this.
It just doesn't matter.
And then they're all just like so offended still. And it is offensive. It is a mark on his character. You don't want to hang out with this man. But when it comes to the political game, it doesn't matter, right? You don't need to apologize anymore, right? Like you did need to apologize maybe back when
Clinton.
Yeah, but also you don't need, like, it's like you also look at history and you're like, you probably don't need to apologize. Didn't need to apologize, back in the 20s or 30s or 40s.
So
right?
What's your, then if we don't need to apologize, then what's your reason for apologizing?
I think the reason but this apology is different, right? Because it is a volunteered apology as opposed to an apology that is forced, right? Because it's, again, we've seen, I don't know, fucking what's his, that guy, like Wiener, race, like that guy who, like, anyways, like Representative Wiener, and it doesn't matter. But like all these fucking men, like, are forced to apologize when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
Right? And as opposed to getting ahead of it and being like, yeah, I fucked up. Right? Like, or to be able to air out some of your dirty laundry and you control the story, right? And it's really hard. It's really hard to ask someone to admit fault when no one is asking them to admit fault, right? Okay. But like, I think that there's a thing in which one, the apology is not, right? It's like when someone apologizes for having a sex scandal, right? Like, what is the apology for? Who is it to? Like, who gives a fuck?
Not to the wife.
Right, it's not to the wife. It's to salvage some of their, like, reputation and public image, right? But, like, how many people are just like, well, he apologized, therefore we like him again? It's like, one, it's only time passing that, like, people plenty of men survive sex scandals, and it is fine, right? But it isn't the apology that makes it okay, right? It's just time and, the patriarchy.
Forgetfulness. Yeah,
forgetfulness. But there's something I think, again, I'm writing, like, the West Wing speech that I want, right? Sure. Like, I'm writing the thing that I want to hear that I think is important that no one ever says, right? And
I don't know if mine's West Wing enough. Possibly.
I think it is, right? I think the second half.
Who do you think would have written it?
Who would have said it in the West Wing? I mean, there's only like 3 people who...
Yeah, I know, but who do you think would have said it? Or who would have written it?
I mean, your speech is very much like a speech CJ gives to...
The press?
No, right? Because like she can't do that as her job.
As herself.
As herself. I think it's like a speech she gives to, like, in this situation where she's like in the privacy of, right? I like to imagine mine as a Matthew Santos speech of some sort,
okay,
right?
But he would have to rip it apart and then go on stage.
Well, yeah, this is what he says improvs. This is what he improvs at the top, right? Where it's like, right? But yeah, it's like the apology becomes something different. Right, like the whole point is like we only apologize when we're forced to apologize. But I'm apologizing ahead of.
But the other thing about the apology that is interesting is that it's not just an apology. It is also you're talking about admitting fault, but the other layer of that is just like, I'm sorry you're in pain. I didn't cause your pain, but like I'm sorry you're in pain, right? Like that thing, that empathy or just like acknowledgement of suffering is also in here. Yeah.
So then the question is, what do you think would be the downfall? Do you are we so naive that when we write these speeches, like
that if they said this, things would be better, or they would be fine, or people would feel seen?
No. I think it's like, do you think it's like the reason why they don't say it, right? Because it's like if they have billions of dollars of focus group money, right? Like somebody must have written a version of some shit like this, right? Maybe her concession speech is in focus group, right? But like, what do you think is like the downfall of admitting fault?
Like in my mind, it's like there are probably things that I can't imagine, right? But we are at a point that is so fucking low. Like, where can we go from here, right? Where do you go from? We lost the popular vote. We've lost the Senate, lost the House, right? And like, where do you want to go from here? Where can you go? How low can you go? And like, I think people might be shocked if she actually said anything along these lines.
That's also my thing, where it's like, do it for the shock factor, right? Like, do it for the shock factor where Trump wins the motherfucking election and people are talking about your election speech, right? Like, do it for the pettiness. Like, fuck, right? Like that would be so much fun, where you just say a bunch of crazy shit in your concession speech that are genuine and honest, and you just fucking run table on the fucking week after the election, and everyone's arguing about
whether or not you are,
and then they
what you've done and what you're gonna do,
and CNN goes out and talks to a bunch of Trump voters and see how they react to your concession speech. You know, just do it for the lulz.
I mean that too, but also like the really real thing that I talk to the women in my life, and we say the thing that we collectively gather and come to is like, what the fuck do we do now?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, we are not people who are in public service. We are not like politicians. What do we do as writers and artists? Like, what do we do? Right? And like, I just imagine if I heard Kamala say something like what I've written, we would be asking a different question.
Mm-hmm.
We would be organizing differently. We would be mobilizing differently.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the only person who I've heard from of like exactly how the fuck to mobilize and organize is from AOC.
Right.
Right. And the immediate thing AOC said was like, start from your, you don't know how important it is to have a community, like, and how this is not exactly what she said, but like how important communities are, your knitting groups, your dining clubs, your like your dinner clubs, and whatever it is that like keep those local communities tight. Cultivate that community, right? And in the moment of franticness after the election, of being like, older women telling me, get your IUD, get your plan B, stock up on things, you see vasectomy is going up like crazy percentage. In this franticness, what is the role of a leader that I want to look to and to do something? And like, we all want to do something after the emotional processing, right?
Sure.
And it's like, isn't that what the leader is supposed to guide us to do? Like, what can you lose? I just don't know. We've already lost most of the country, so like,
what else? Yeah, might as well.
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Next episode of Snobs, we are critiquing the documentary Tell Them You Love Me, which is about the case of Anna Stubblefield and her relationship with her kind of disabled patient / client, Derek Johnson. And we are both disabled artists, and we found the movie to be very fascinating, and how they critique how they constructed the story. And we have a lot of opinions about how the documentary frames the story and the things that the story doesn't refuse to look at. And so, next week we'll be snobs about that.